Hi, my name is Anne Land and I'm an assistant professor at the department Science, Communication and Society. And I'm also the coordinator of the specialization with the same name. And in this presentation, I will tell you what science communication is, why it's important and how you can study it at Leiden University. So first of all, what is science communication? Well, there are different forms of science communication. And when we ask our students what they think of when we talk about science communication, they usually talk about how a scientist is presenting for a general audience in a public lecture, or how they write about science. So for example, in a book or in a science magazine. But there are many different forms of science communication. So another form is science museums. So here you see a picture of the dinosaur fossil Trix at Naturalis in Leiden. And in science museums, people learn about science outside of school, about many different topics, and real objects are being used to support that learning. Another example is projects where people can actually become part of the scientific process. So here's an example of citizen science, and those are projects where the public is part of the scientific process as collaborators and as scientists or researchers. Another example that you see more and more is on internet. For example, clips on YouTube that explain a small topic of science. And also in popular media like television, you see many programs that have science in them. For example, Mythbusters, where you see people in a fun and entertaining way, how you ask questions, find an hypothesis, and then test out if it's true. And another part of science communication that's very important is health communication. So talking about the communication between doctors and patients, but also to the general audience of what health is important and how it works. So why is it then so important? Well, I think more and more in society you see that science is part of our world, the world around us. And a very specific example is nowadays the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, where you see that all messages that are being broadcasted to the general audience have some science in them. So in order to understand what's going on, people in the audience need a bit of scientific knowledge or a bit of knowledge about how viruses work and how a pandemic works. And also people that are communicating about the pandemic should know what prior knowledge and what interests and what values the people have that they talk to. So sometimes you see that it clashes and people are angry because they maybe don't understand or because they don't feel heard. So really here you see the importance of not just talking to people about topics, but also including them in the conversation, listening to their values and their maybe the fears that they have, especially, for example, if you talk about vaccines. You see that science communication is very important and is very current. So another example is when new technologies find their way into society. So in this example, you see a truck that goes to different audiences to talk with people about nanotechnology. And in the past, we've seen that when new technologies find their way into society, it's really important to take people with you. So for example, with genetically modified foods, even though scientists were very excited about the role it could play for society, people were afraid of it or had fears for it. And it's important to take people along throughout the development of the technologies to understand what they're afraid of, what they find important, to know in advance how you can combine the science and the society. So if you also find that it's important to do more in science communication, if you have a passion to be a part of that process, there's a specialization at Leiden University where you can learn how to do this. So our specialization can be followed by many different master's programs in the science faculty. So here you see them listed: astronomy, biopharmaceutical sciences, biology, biomedical sciences at LUMC, and then chemistry, computer science, life science and technology, mathematics and physics. And the group of students that take this specialization, therefore, is a very interdisciplinary group, which makes it also an interesting group to work with and to be part of. Our entire specialization entails 40 to 60 EC. So it has to be at least 40 in order for it to be part of your diploma. But then we advise people to, if they really feel a passion for science communication and want to maybe go into that world, that they take 60 EC. So that's a full year of the 2-year masters in one of these other programs. Then usually students take our year, the science communication year, in their second master's year. And they start in September until December with coursework. So there's a full-time period of coursework of 16 weeks. And then after those 16 weeks and after Christmas break, students do their internships. And the internship period entails 17 to 37 ECs, so that's 12 to 26 weeks. And that complete period of internships consists of at least 13 EC of research. And the rest of the internship period can be practical work. And I'll talk a bit about what these courses entail and also what the internships are like. So in the first 13 weeks of the coursework, we have 5 different courses that run simultaneously. The first one is Research in Science Communication. We have Science Journalism in Dutch and in English, and all the other courses are in English only. Informal Science Education, Policy and Development in Science and Society, Scientific Narration and Visualization. And I'll talk about these different courses in more detail. And then at the last 3 weeks of this course period, we have the course Product Development. And that means that students are taking everything that they've learned in the first weeks and combine it, bring it to practice in a real scientific product for a scientist in our faculty. So to go through the different courses and different topics that we cover, the first course is Research in Science Communication. And the word says it a bit, but this is a really different field than the sciences. So really our research and our theory is more closer to social science. So in this course, you'll learn a bit about the theory of science communication and also about how you do research in this field, because that is also what you will be doing in your internship. So for example, here you see a picture of the theory of planned behavior, which is a theoretical framework that shows how behavior is being influenced and impacted by how people think about a certain topic, what they know about the topic, and if they think they can do and perform the behavior. So those are ways to support what we do in science communication with theory. In science journalism, you learn how to write for a general audience. So we give this course in 2 languages, English and Dutch, because we think it's very important for Dutch people, if they want to work in the Dutch field, that they have done this and have practiced this in Dutch, because there are differences between the 2 languages when it comes to science journalism. And in this course, you write a lot of articles yourself, get feedback, and then write a second version. So at the end, you will have a portfolio that you can show to others if you're trying to find a job or an internship. The third course is Informal Science Education. And that is about learning about science in science museums, botanical gardens, zoos, those kinds of institutions. And here we combine a lot of theory about learning and about target groups with the practice of visiting a few of these institutions. So you can really link theory and practice. There's another course that's called Policy and Development in Science and Society. And here we show how science communication is part of the scientific world and the scientific system. So more and more, as part of science, science communication is an important goal and an important pillar of it. It's also about development in science and society, so about doing science communication for underrepresented groups or countries that don't have their own or have a big scientific system within them. Another course is Scientific Narration and Visualization, and here we talk about different forms of science communication that are visual or more narrative, besides the normal forms that you already know of. So thinking about demonstrations, about infographics, about exhibits, so really thinking about why is this form appropriate for the message that I have and for the target group that I'm trying to reach. And then, like I said, at the end of these 16 weeks, we let students work in groups for a real client, a researcher that is part of our faculty, on a real science communication product. And some of these products that students have worked on are actually being used right now. So for example, the Leiden math trail is there. So you can walk through Leiden and do different math assignments, and our students have made this product. So this is just a view of our teachers. We have Jonica Smeets as the head of our department. I'm one of the teachers, and here you see 3 of the other ones. And also some information to contact us. So then after the courses, students are going to do internships. And after that, they will try to find jobs. And internships and jobs are usually in the same areas. So first for the internship planning, it's, like I said, 17 to 37 ECs, and it also includes research. So you have 3 ECs to write a research proposal, and then at least 10 to do a research study within your internship. You can include everything in one big internship, or you can split it up into 2 smaller ones, where one is the practical internship and one is the research internship. And you don't have to know what you will be doing in your internship right at the start. So during the courses, you'll learn more about the field, start thinking, and then in November and December, we usually have students find their internships. And we have a big network where we can help students to find a place where they feel that they can learn new things. So places where our students are doing their internships are, for example, editorial offices of newspapers or popular science magazines, where they write articles. We also have students doing their internship at radio or television, where there are science shows. Many of our students are going to science museums and science centers or zoos to do work in an educational department and, for example, develop exhibits or activities for families that have to do with science. There are companies in the Netherlands that develop educational materials that are a good place for our students. And we also have students at health organizations or environmental organizations that are focusing on patients of several different diseases or health in general, and also on nature. And then we also have research internships at our department. So many of our colleagues are doing research in science communication, and students can be part of those research studies and do their own smaller research projects. So in terms of job perspectives, many people always tell us that, yeah, if you do science communication, there's no job for you, so you really need to do it only out of passion. But that's actually not true. Science communication is such a broad field that we find that most of our students find a job that's suitable for them and that they're happy with within 2 years of their graduation. So here are actually a few faces that are alumni from our program. So Ines is now a science marketeer at Nivel, which is a research organization about health research. We have Jasper, who's the head of Artes Micropia, so he's working in a science museum. Daniel is an editor at C2W, which is a popular science magazine about chemistry. Annemiek is a junior editor at Leiden University Medical Center, so she's a bit closer to the research and is communicating in their communication department. Bushra has become a biology teacher. So we see that many of our students, when they do their internship, they find out that education might be something for them, and then they do another year of the education specialization or the education track to become a high school teacher. And we also have students like Francine who do a PhD in their own field. So it doesn't mean that if you choose science communication, that you're out of an option for research in the academia. So even with, and I think especially doing science communication and then becoming a scientist will help you be able to let other people understand what you're doing and why it's important what you do. So like I said, there's also research at our department. So to get a bit of an idea of what research in science communication can look like, I'm showing a few themes that we cover. So one of them is motivation and learning in citizen science. So if you're part of a scientific study as a real researcher, what does that do with your motivation and with learning, and what do you know about science afterwards? Another topic is learning in science museums. So we collaborate with Naturalis and, for example, Museum in The Hague to do research about that learning process in museums. We also look at scientific news in the media. So especially now with the pandemic and with health news, we look at what happens between the research and how it ends up in the media, and also the role that graphs play in that. So sometimes graphs are being used to manipulate the news a bit. So we're looking at how can you help people to be a bit more critical about looking at those graphs. And then we're also looking at the relationship between quantum technology and society. So it's also one of those new technologies. So how can we involve people in the process of bringing these technologies into society? So hopefully you've gotten a good view of what our specialization is like and why science communication is important and maybe a fun avenue for you. If you have more questions, you can always reach out through our website or through our email address.